Chosen one. This message you are hearing is not reaching you by chance. You did not wander into this moment. You were drawn here because heaven has marked this hour on its clock, and your prophetic scroll is being unsealed in perfect Kairos timing. Chosen one, you are standing at the edge of a divinely appointed moment. A season you prayed through, endured through, and waited through is now responding to heaven's command. What was delayed was never denied. What was hidden was never forgotten. The Spirit is declaring that the time has come for God to step in where your strength has reached its limit. Anointed One, heaven is not asking you to push harder. It is announcing a divine takeover. There is a shift unfolding that could begin today, tonight, or in the coming days, one that rearranges what effort could never fix. As it is written in Habakkuk chapter 2, verse 3, the vision was appointed for a set time, and now it speaks. Chosen one. This is the hour. Ecclesiastes chapter 3 verse 1 speaks of a time and a season written for you before you were born. Isaiah chapter 60 verse 22 reminds us that when the time is right, the Lord makes it happen swiftly. So quiet your striving. Open your spirit. Expect transformation. Heaven has spoken and God is stepping in. Chosen one. There is a reason your nights have been restless. A reason your heart has been loud when the world finally goes quiet. You have given strength you did not have carried responsibilities you were never meant to hold alone, and smiled through moments that should have broken you. This is not weakness. It is evidence of how long you have been standing in faith without relief. Anointed one, hear this clearly. Heaven is not disappointed in you. Heaven is intervening for you. There comes a moment in every divine assignment where effort reaches its limit. Not because you are unfaithful, but because the assignment was never designed to be completed by human endurance. You were not meant to muscle your way into destiny. You were meant to arrive there carried. I want to speak to you not just as a messenger, but as someone who has lived this. There was a season in my life where I kept saying, just a little longer, just one more push. I prayed harder, worked longer, slept less, and told myself that if I stopped, everything would fall apart. But what actually fell apart was me. And only then did I realize something humbling and holy. God was waiting for me to stop trying to save myself. Chosen one. You have reached that same sacred edge. This exhaustion you feel is not punishment. It is instruction. It is heaven's signal that you have arrived at the boundary between striving and surrender. And right here, this is where the scroll begins to open. There are seasons when God allows you to do everything you can do, so that when you finally cannot do any more, you will recognize His hand when it moves. Your weariness is not a sign that you are behind. It is a sign that the baton is being passed. You see, there is a hidden law of the kingdom that few talk about. Divine takeover only happens when human control ends. As long as you can still make it work, heaven will often stay quiet, not absent, but waiting. Waiting for consent. Waiting for release. Waiting for trust. Chosen one, heaven has now received that consent. You have prayed prayers that never made it to the amen. You have whispered faith through tears. You have obeyed when it was costly and stayed silent when it would have been easier to speak. And though you wondered if God noticed, the truth is He has been watching closely, more closely than you know. There is a line in Scripture that says God works while His beloved sleep. That is not poetic language. That is a kingdom principle. It means there are breakthroughs that only activate when you are no longer touching them. There are doors that only open when your hands are finally empty. And I need you to hear this next part slowly. Rest is not retreat. Rest is alignment. When God says you have done enough, He is not rebuking you. He is relieving you. He is saying, you have reached the end of what effort can produce. Now watch what authority can release. Chosen one. Your assignment was never meant to be sustained by adrenaline, anxiety, or overthinking. It was meant to be carried by grace. And grace does not flow where control still dominates. This is why everything in you has felt heavy. You were trying to do with strength what was meant to be done through surrender. I have seen this pattern again and again in my own life and in the lives of those I walk with. The breakthrough does not come when they figure out the next step. It comes when they finally stop forcing one. When they say, God, I don't know how anymore, and I trust you with that. That sentence alone shifts realms. Chosen one, you are not falling behind. You are falling into alignment. And right now, something is lifting. You may not see it yet, but you can feel it, a subtle easing, a loosening in your chest, a quiet invitation to breathe again. That is not imagination. That is the hand of God repositioning the weight. Chosen one. There is a holy quiet settling over your life right now, even if circumstances have not changed yet. This quiet is not emptiness, it is transition. It is the sound of heaven moving pieces you were never meant to touch. I remember a season when nothing made sense outwardly, yet inwardly everything was being rearranged. God was teaching me that silence does not mean absence. It often means instruction is happening behind the veil, where faith is formed without applause and trust is refined beyond explanation. This truth changed how I listened, waited, and learned to release control. Chosen one. You may feel exposed without answers, but heaven is not confused about you. What feels like stillness is actually precise timing aligning. There are doors that only open when you stop knocking and stand back. I have watched God delay me just long enough to save me from shortcuts that would have cost my peace. In hindsight, the pauses were protection. God was not withholding progress. He was removing pressure so I could arrive whole, not successful, yet fractured inside. That lesson reshaped my faith and softened my grip on outcomes. I began trusting God with timing identity. Anointed one, surrender is not passive waiting, it is active trust. It is choosing to rest while God works in ways you cannot trace. There were moments I wanted clarity more than peace answers, more than presence. Yet God offered me rest instead. He showed me that anxiety is often disguised control, and faith is learning to lay that control down daily. When you stop rehearsing worst outcomes, your spirit becomes available for divine instruction that only arrives in calm spaces. This availability marks the threshold where destiny transitions from effort into grace. Here, heaven leads without resistance, fear striving. Chosen one. The fatigue you feel has been a signal, not a failure. You were never designed to carry destiny alone. When Elijah collapsed under exhaustion, God did not correct him, he fed him. That story taught me something: sacred nourishment precedes assignment. Rest is preparation, not delay. God restores strength before revealing direction. When you stop running, you notice provision already waiting. What you thought was weakness is actually the moment God proves He sustains what He calls. I have learned obedience sometimes looks like stillness, breathing, and trusting God completely. This posture invites heaven to act without interference. Anointed one's spiritual warfare intensifies when exhaustion sets in. The enemy prefers believers drained, distracted, and discouraged. I have seen how fear speaks louder when rest is neglected, but rest is resistance. It declares trust beyond words. When Jesus slept during the storm, it was not denial, it was confidence. That image changed how I faced chaos. I realized peace is not the absence of waves, but the presence of assurance. Rest silences the lie that everything depends on you. It shifts authority back to God, where outcomes were always meant to reside. Here, faith breathes and fear loses momentum. Chosen one. God taking over does not mean you disappear. It means you align. Scripture reminds us that the Lord fights while we stand still, but standing still is not doing nothing. It is worship, trust, and positioning. I have learned that alignment feels slower, but produces deeper fruit. When you stop forcing solutions, heaven reveals strategies you could never design. This is where divine intelligence flows. Surrender opens access to wisdom that striving blocks. God's hand moves freely when yours finally release. This release invites peace, clarity, and timing beyond human calculation. It is here destiny accelerates without pressure. Anointed one, you are not late, forgotten, or overlooked. Heaven's clock has been precise. What felt like delay was divine sequencing. I speak this from experience, having watched God redeem lost seasons with sudden clarity. When He moves, it is swift and unmistakable. Your role now is simple, but not easy. Trust. Let go of timelines you created in pain. Allow God to reveal outcomes shaped by love, not fear. This moment invites you into safety, rest, and expectation without striving. Stay here, breathe deeply, and let heaven complete what you began in faith. You are held, guided, and carried. Unchosen one, there is a deeper layer to what is happening that you may only now be beginning to sense. When God says, "Let me take over," He is not simply offering relief from exhaustion. He is repositioning you for authority. There is a difference between surviving and stewarding. Survival drains you. Stewardship steadies you. Many of the pressures you have carried were never meant to shape your character. They were meant to reveal the moment you would finally release control. I learned this the hard way after seasons of pushing through with discipline and faith, yet quietly losing joy. It was not until I stopped demanding outcomes that I realized God was preparing me not just to receive, but to govern what He would release next. Chosen one control often feels responsible, but spiritually it can become resistance. The need to know how, when, and with whom God will move can quietly choke trust. There was a season when I prayed constantly, but listened very little, mistaking repetition for faith. God gently showed me that faith listens more than it speaks. When I finally sat with unanswered questions without rushing to fill the silence, clarity came not as instructions, but as peace. And that peace carried direction. Heaven does not shout over striving, it whispers into rest. That whisper is what aligns you now. Anointed one, you are being trained to recognize divine movement without panic. When you are exhausted, every delay feels threatening. But when you are rested, delay becomes information. God is teaching your spirit how to discern timing without anxiety. This is not accidental. There are assignments ahead that require emotional stability, spiritual clarity, and inner stillness. You cannot steward what is coming if you are constantly reacting. God often slows you down, not because you are weak, but because what is coming is heavy with responsibility and influence. Rest prepares your nervous system for trust. Chosen one, the hidden scroll of your life has not been sealed because you were unworthy, but because you were unready. Readiness is not about effort, it is about posture. I have seen doors open effortlessly once I stopped knocking out of fear. God revealed that frantic faith still centers the self, while surrendered faith centers Him. That shift changes everything. When God takes over, He does not rush. He is precise. Every connection, every opportunity, every release arrives at the correct weight and moment. This protects you from misalignment that looks like success but feels hollow. Anointed One, consider how many times you were spared from things you once begged for. At the time, it felt like rejection. Now you can see it was mercy. God guards your future more fiercely than you guard your plans. The more you trust this, the lighter your spirit becomes. I remember looking back at missed opportunities and realizing that had they worked, they would have required me to become someone I was not called to be. God preserved my identity by withholding access. That same preservation is active in your life now, even if you cannot yet name it. Chosen One. Heaven is also healing your relationship with power. Power without rest becomes control. Power with rest becomes authority. Authority flows naturally, it does not strive. This is why God is drawing you into stillness. He is teaching you to lead from peace, not pressure. Many believers burn out because they confuse urgency with importance. But God does not rush destiny. He unfolds it. When you rest, you are not delaying purpose. You are synchronizing with it. That synchronization creates flow instead of friction. Anointed One, you may notice your desires shifting. What once felt urgent may now feel heavy. What once excited you may no longer fit. This is not loss, it is refinement. God is simplifying your spirit so you can recognize what belongs in the next season. Simplification often feels like subtraction, but it is actually focus. I learned that clarity often comes after release, not before it. When I stopped holding on to every option, God showed me the one that mattered. Expect this same narrowing to bring peace, not fear. Chosen One, you are learning to trust God not only with outcomes, but with identity. Who you are does not disappear when you stop striving, it emerges. Rest reveals truth. In rest, you discover that your worth was never tied to productivity and your calling was never sustained by effort alone. This realization dismantles fear and restores joy. Heaven is not impressed by exhaustion. Heaven responds to trust. And trust is the atmosphere where miracles move quietly, steadily, and completely. Stay here. Let God complete what He has begun without interruption. My chosen one. As God takes over, you may notice something subtle but profound happening within you. Your internal narrative is changing. The voice that once pushed you relentlessly forward is softening, replaced by a quieter confidence that does not need constant reassurance. This shift is sacred. It signals that your spirit is learning to rest in God's sovereignty rather than its own vigilance. I remember realizing one day that my prayers had changed tone. They were no longer filled with urgency or bargaining, but with trust. That was the moment I understood that God had moved me from desperation into alignment. Anointed One. This internal shift prepares you for external change. Destiny rarely arrives with chaos. It arrives with clarity. When God takes over, He removes confusion before He introduces movement. You may feel less compelled to explain yourself, defend your timing, or prove your obedience. That is not withdrawal, it is maturity. God is anchoring you internally so that external circumstances do not destabilize you. This anchoring is essential for what lies ahead. Influence without grounding leads to collapse. God secures you before He elevates you. Chosen One, you are also being taught discernment through rest. When you slow down, you begin to sense what drains you and what strengthens you. I learned that exhaustion often comes from misalignment, not workload. Doing the right thing at the wrong time can be just as draining as doing the wrong thing altogether. God is sharpening your sensitivity so you no longer say yes out of fear or obligation. Rest clarifies boundaries. Boundaries protect calling. Expect relationships, routines, and responsibilities to reorganize naturally as your spirit settles into peace. Anointed One. There is a sacred exchange happening now. You are releasing anxiety, and God is releasing assurance. Assurance does not always explain the path, but it stabilizes the heart. I remember seasons when nothing made sense on paper, yet inwardly I felt calm. That calm was not denial, it was alignment. God does not need you to understand the full picture. He needs you to trust His character. That trust allows Him to move without resistance. When you stop micromanaging the future, heaven manages it with precision. Chosen One, surrender also restores joy. Joy is not emotional excitement, it is spiritual security. Many believers mistake intensity for intimacy, but God desires closeness, not constant urgency. Rest invites intimacy. In stillness, you hear God affirm who you are beyond what you do. This affirmation heals deep places of striving rooted in fear of loss or abandonment. As God takes over, He addresses not only your circumstances, but the beliefs that kept you overworking your faith. Expect emotional healing alongside spiritual clarity. Anointed One. Your faith is becoming quieter but stronger. It no longer needs to announce itself. It trusts God without performance. This kind of faith moves heaven because it reflects maturity. I have seen doors open unexpectedly once I stopped rehearsing outcomes. God responds to readiness, not anxiety. Readiness looks like peace, obedience, and patience. These qualities signal to heaven that you can steward what is released without losing yourself in it. Chosen One. There will be moments ahead when you are tempted to take control again, especially when uncertainty surfaces. When that happens, return to rest. Rest is not a one-time decision, it is a daily posture. Each day you choose trust over tension, alignment over urgency. This practice strengthens spiritual muscles you did not know you needed. God is teaching you consistency, not intensity. Consistency sustains destiny. Anointed One, the season of God taking over is not dramatic, it is deliberate. It may not announce itself loudly, but its effects will be undeniable. Peace will guard your thoughts. Clarity will guide your steps. Opportunities will align without forcing, and when movement comes, it will feel steady rather than rushed. This is how you will know it is God. He does not lead you into confusion. He leads you into rest-filled obedience. Chosen One, stay present. Do not rush ahead mentally or retreat emotionally. What is unfolding requires your availability, not your anxiety. God has not brought you this far to abandon you. He has brought you here to carry you forward. Trust the process. Trust the timing. Trust the One who has already taken over. Chosen One. There is a quiet courage being formed in you now, one that does not come from adrenaline or urgency, but from assurance. This courage is different from the kind you used before. Before you pushed through fear. Now you are learning to stand without it. When God takes over, He does not just remove burdens. He recalibrates how you perceive risk, failure, and waiting. I remember realizing one day that I was no longer afraid of things not working out. Not because I had answers, but because I trusted who was leading. That trust changed my posture from defensive to receptive, and everything around me began to respond differently. Anointed One. This season is teaching you that faith is not proved by how much you can endure, but by how deeply you can trust. Endurance kept you alive in past seasons. Trust will now move you forward. God is gently closing the chapter where survival was your primary skill. You are stepping into a chapter where discernment, patience, and peace are required. Survival seasons teach you strength. Stewardship seasons teach you wisdom. Wisdom does not rush. It listens, observes, and responds only when prompted. This is why your spirit has been craving quiet more than noise. Chosen one. You may notice that old patterns of urgency no longer satisfy you. What once felt productive now feels draining. This is not laziness, it is growth. God is detoxing your spirit from pressure-driven living. I learned that constant urgency trains your nervous system to confuse anxiety with purpose. When God slowed me down, it felt uncomfortable at first, almost irresponsible. But over time, I realized He was teaching me to recognize His pace. His pace is sustainable. It does not leave you depleted. It strengthens you as you walk. Anointed one. There is also a restoration of trust happening internally. Not just trust in God, but trust in yourself under God's guidance. When you live in constant striving, you second-guess every decision. Rest restores confidence. Confidence anchored in God does not need validation. It knows when to move and when to wait. I remember moments when clarity arrived, not through analysis, but through peace. That peace became my confirmation. God is cultivating that same inner compass in you now, one that responds to alignment rather than pressure. Chosen. One Heaven is also healing your relationship with time. You are learning that being early, late, or on time means nothing if you are not aligned. God redeems time by redeeming posture. I once feared wasted years, thinking I had fallen behind. But God showed me that nothing surrendered to Him is ever wasted. He weaves even delays into purpose. That revelation lifted shame I did not know I carried. Expect God to reframe how you see your past, not as lost ground, but as preparation that now makes sense. Anointed one. Rest is sharpening your spiritual sensitivity. When you are no longer exhausted, you hear more clearly. You sense subtle prompts you once missed. God often speaks softly, and exhaustion drowns out His voice. I noticed that as I rested, my reactions slowed, but my discernment increased. I no longer felt pressured to respond immediately. Instead, I waited for confirmation. That waiting saved me from missteps that would have cost peace. God is giving you this same gift, discernment, without anxiety. Chosen one, do not be surprised if your priorities continue to simplify. God is decluttering your spirit so you can carry what matters without distraction. Simplicity creates focus, and focus creates impact. This process may involve releasing commitments, expectations, or even identities you once clung to. That release is not loss, it is refinement. I learned that God often removes good things to make room for God things. This refinement feels uncomfortable, but it produces freedom that striving never could. Anointed one. The more you rest, the more authority you carry. Authority flows from alignment, not effort. When you are aligned, things respond without force. Conversations shift. Opportunities align. Resistance decreases. I have witnessed this repeatedly when I stopped forcing doors the right ones opened effortlessly. God honors trust with clarity. Trust signals readiness. It tells heaven you can steward what is released without fear or control. That readiness is being formed in you now, quietly but surely. Chosen. One, remain attentive to this process. Do not rush to label it or explain it. Some transformations are meant to be lived before they are understood. God is working beneath the surface, strengthening foundations you will stand on later. Stay present. Stay rested. Stay surrendered. What is unfolding does not need your help, only your trust. You are not losing momentum. You are gaining stability. And stability is what carries destiny safely forward. Chosen one. As this season deepens, you may begin to recognize how much of your past striving was rooted in fear rather than faith. Fear of falling behind, fear of disappointing others, fear of missing what God had promised. God is not condemning that fear. He is healing it. Healing begins when fear no longer drives your decisions. I remember the relief of realizing that God was not measuring my worth by speed or output. That realization freed me from a constant internal race I did not know I was running. Freedom does not always look like excitement. Sometimes it looks like peace. Anointed one. God taking over also restores your sense of safety. Safety is essential for growth. When you feel unsafe, you rush. When you feel secure, you can listen. God is creating an environment of spiritual safety around you, not by removing challenges, but by anchoring you internally. This anchor keeps you steady even when circumstances fluctuate. I learned that peace is not fragile. It is resilient. It remains even when answers are incomplete. That resilience is being built in you now. Chosen one. There is also a redefinition of success happening. Success is no longer about how much you accomplish, but about how aligned you remain. Alignment produces fruit without exhaustion. I used to equate busyness with obedience. God showed me that obedience often looks quiet, steady, and intentional. When I slowed down, I noticed how much energy I wasted on things God never asked me to carry. Releasing those things created space for what truly mattered. Expect your definition of success to continue shifting toward peace, clarity, and impact. Anointed one. As you rest, you may feel moments of uncertainty surface. This is natural. When control loosens the mind, searches for familiar anchors. When that happens, return to trust. Trust is not a feeling. It is a decision. Each time you choose trust, you reinforce alignment. I learned to speak trust aloud when anxiety crept in, reminding myself that God had not failed me before. That practice grounded me. God honors simple, honest trust more than elaborate effort. Chosen one rest also prepares you to receive guidance without confusion. When your spirit is calm, instruction lands gently. God does not overwhelm you with information. He releases insight at the pace you can carry. I noticed that as I rested, God gave me fewer instructions but clearer ones. Clarity increased as noise decreased. This is how God leads sustainably. Expect guidance to feel simpler, not more complex. Simplicity is often the mark of divine wisdom. Anointed one. There is a deepening intimacy with God available in this season. Intimacy grows in stillness. When you stop performing faith, you begin experiencing it. I discovered that God was less interested in my effort than in my attention. Giving him attention changed how I prayed, listened, and responded. This intimacy anchors you when external affirmation fades. It reminds you that you are known, seen, and valued beyond outcomes. That knowledge stabilizes identity. Chosen one as intimacy deepens comparison, loses power. You stop measuring your progress against others because you trust your path. I remember the relief of no longer needing to keep up. God showed me that comparison often masks insecurity, and rest heals that insecurity. When you trust God's timing, you no longer rush to prove anything. You become content to walk your path faithfully. That contentment is not complacency. It is confidence rooted in trust. Anointed One, expect peace to guard your decisions more than logic. Peace does not always make sense to the mind, but it aligns the spirit. When peace is present, God is present. I learned to follow peace even when it contradicted expectations. That obedience led to outcomes I could not have predicted. Peace became my compass. God is offering you the same guidance now. Learn to honor peace without guilt. Chosen One. This season of God taking over is shaping you into someone who can carry blessing without pressure and responsibility without fear. That shaping is intentional. Stay surrendered, stay attentive, stay rested. You are not being left behind. You are being led forward with care. Trust the process unfolding within you. God has not taken over to control you, but to carry you. Chosen One, there is a sacred steadiness settling into your spirit now, and it may feel unfamiliar because you are no longer being driven by urgency. In earlier seasons, urgency felt like faith. It felt like obedience. It felt like responsibility. But now God is teaching you the difference between movement that comes from pressure and movement that comes from peace. I remember realizing that much of what I called discipline was actually fear wearing spiritual language. Fear of missing the moment, fear of disappointing God, fear of falling behind others. God did not shame me for that fear. He gently removed it by showing me that His will does not depend on my anxiety to succeed. That realization changed everything. Anointed One, as you rest, your discernment is being recalibrated. You are learning to recognize when something is from God, not by how urgent it feels, but by how settled it leaves you. God's instructions carry weight, but they do not carry panic. They may stretch you, but they do not fracture you. This shift is essential for what lies ahead, because the next phase of your life will require clarity under pressure, not reactivity. God is training your spirit to remain anchored even when decisions carry consequence. This is why rest is not optional now. It is foundational. Chosen One. There is also a healing happening around disappointment. You have experienced moments where you trusted God deeply, yet outcomes did not align with what you expected. Those moments left quiet questions in your heart, questions you may not have voiced, but still carried. God is not offended by those questions. He is answering them now, not with explanations, but with assurance. I remember sitting with unanswered prayers and realizing that God was more concerned with restoring my trust than explaining His timing. Trust restored does more for destiny than answers ever could. Anointed One, as trust deepens your identity, stabilizes. You no longer feel the need to prove your calling through constant output. You know who you are, even when you are still. That knowing is powerful. It allows you to say no without guilt and yes without fear. It protects you from comparison and burnout. I learned that identity rooted in God does not fluctuate with seasons. It remains steady through waiting, movement, and change. God is establishing that same steadiness in you now. Chosen One, you may also notice a quiet boldness emerging. Not the loud kind that announces itself, but the calm kind that does not need permission. This boldness comes from alignment. When you know God is leading, hesitation fades. I have seen this in my own life, moments where clarity replaced anxiety and obedience felt natural rather than forced. That boldness is not about control, it is about confidence in God's direction. Expect your decisions to feel simpler, not because they are easier, but because you are more aligned. Anointed One Heaven is also addressing the way you relate to failure. When striving ruled, failure felt catastrophic. Now failure loses its power because your security is no longer tied to outcomes. God is teaching you that obedience is success, regardless of immediate results. I learned to rest, even when things did not work out as planned, trusting that God could redeem any outcome surrendered to Him. That trust removed fear from experimentation and obedience. God wants you free to move without the weight of perfection. Chosen One rest is also restoring joy. Joy that is not dependent on progress reports or visible milestones. Joy that exists because you are aligned, not because you are ahead. I remember rediscovering joy in simple moments once pressure lifted. That joy fueled my faith more than effort ever did. Joy is a sign of alignment. When joy returns, it means your spirit is no longer carrying what it was never meant to hold. Expect joy to continue resurfacing in unexpected ways. Anointed One, as this steadiness grows, you will find yourself less reactive to external noise. Opinions lose volume. Expectations lose grip. God's voice becomes clearer because competing voices have been quieted. This clarity allows you to move with precision rather than impulse. I learned that clarity is often a byproduct of rest, not effort. When the mind is calm, wisdom surfaces naturally. God is cultivating that clarity in you now. Chosen One, do not rush this process. Rushing would reintroduce the very pressure God is removing. Allow the steadiness to deepen. Let peace become familiar. This is not stagnation. It is grounding. Grounding allows growth without collapse. You are being prepared to carry weight without strain, influence without anxiety, and responsibility without fear. Trust what God is doing beneath the surface. It is intentional, protective, and necessary. Chosen One. As this season continues, you may begin to notice how much quieter your inner world has become. Thoughts that once raced now pass more slowly. Worries that once dominated no longer command immediate attention. This quiet is not emptiness. It is space. Space where God can speak without interruption. I remember realizing that God had not changed His voice. I had simply reduced the noise. That reduction did not happen overnight. It happened through consistent surrender, choosing rest repeatedly, even when my mind wanted to rush ahead. That discipline created room for clarity to emerge naturally. Anointed One. This space is where wisdom grows. Wisdom is not hurried. It observes. It listens. It waits for confirmation. God is teaching you to value wisdom over speed. In earlier seasons, speed felt necessary to survive. Now wisdom is required to steward what is coming. I learned that wisdom often delays action until alignment is complete. That delay is not avoidance. It is preparation. God does not rush outcomes that must endure. Chosen One. You are also learning to trust your inner witness. When God takes over, He strengthens your spiritual intuition. You begin to sense what aligns and what does not, without needing excessive explanation. I remember learning to honor that sense, even when logic questioned it. That trust saved me from decisions that looked good externally, but felt heavy internally. God is refining your sensitivity so you can navigate complexity with peace rather than confusion. Anointed One rest is also healing old wounds around control. Control often develops as a response to uncertainty or disappointment. God is gently unwinding those patterns, teaching you that safety comes from trust, not management. I noticed how much energy control consumed once I released it. That release freed capacity for creativity, compassion, and presence. God is restoring those capacities in you now, allowing you to engage life fully without fear of losing control. Chosen one, as fear loosens its grip, faith becomes simpler. Faith no longer needs constant reinforcement. It rests. This kind of faith trusts God's character more than circumstances. I learned that trusting who God is matters more than understanding what He is doing. That trust anchored me through uncertainty without demanding clarity. God is inviting you into that same depth of faith, one that does not panic when answers are delayed. Anointed one, expect your prayer life to change as well. Prayer becomes less about asking and more about aligning, less about urgency and more about intimacy. I found myself praying fewer words, but listening more. That listening revealed guidance I had previously missed. God speaks in stillness, and rest creates the environment where stillness can be heard. This shift deepens relationship and reduces striving. Chosen one. There may be moments when you are tempted to return to old habits of overthinking or rushing. When that happens, gently return to rest. Do not judge yourself. Transformation is iterative. Each return to rest strengthens alignment. I learned to see rest as a practice rather than a destination. Each day offered a choice: trust or tension. Choosing trust consistently reshaped my internal landscape. God honors that consistency. Anointed one. This season is also refining your expectations. You begin to expect God to move without needing to predict how. That flexibility protects you from disappointment. I learned that rigid expectations often block gratitude. When I released them, I became more aware of God's subtle provision. Gratitude increased as pressure decreased. Expect gratitude to grow as trust deepens. Chosen. One peace is becoming your default posture. This does not mean challenges disappear. It means they no longer dominate. Peace allows you to respond thoughtfully rather than react emotionally. I discovered that peace is powerful because it disarms fear. Fear cannot thrive where peace governs. God is establishing peace as a governing force in your life now. Anointed one, remain attentive to this transformation. Do not rush to label it or explain it. Some changes reveal their purpose only in hindsight. Trust that God knows the pace you need. You are not being slowed down, you are being stabilized. Stability ensures longevity. Longevity ensures impact. Allow God to complete this work without interference. He is leading you with care, precision, and love. Chosen one. There is a subtle strengthening happening beneath the calm you are learning to live in. At first, rest feels like release, like finally laying down something heavy. But as time passes, you begin to realize that rest is not only relief, it is reinforcement. Your spirit is becoming more resilient, not by enduring pressure, but by no longer being ruled by it. I remember the moment I noticed this in my own life. Situations that once would have sent my thoughts spiraling no longer had the same power. Not because they were smaller, but because I was steadier. That steadiness is being formed in you now. Anointed one. This is how God prepares people for lasting influence. Influence without rest produces collapse. Influence rooted in rest produces endurance. God is not merely interested in what you can accomplish. He is deeply invested in how you will carry what He gives you. This is why He is slowing internal reactions before accelerating external movement. You are being shaped to respond from alignment, not emotion. That shaping may feel invisible, but it is essential. Foundations are always formed underground before anything visible rises. Chosen one, you are also learning how to trust God with uncertainty without rushing to fill the gaps. There was a time when uncertainty felt unbearable to me. I believed I needed answers to feel safe. But God showed me that safety does not come from knowing the outcome. It comes from knowing the one who leads the outcome. That realization changed how I faced the unknown. I stopped demanding certainty and started practicing presence. Presence with God steadies the mind when details are missing. This is the posture you are stepping into now. Anointed one, Tam. Notice how your relationship with waiting is changing. Waiting no longer feels like punishment. It feels purposeful. Purposeful waiting sharpens discernment. When you are no longer frantic, you can sense what is ripe and what is premature. God often protects you from yourself by teaching you to wait until alignment is complete. I learned that acting too soon often creates more work later. Waiting in peace saves energy, preserves joy, and prevents unnecessary wounds. God is teaching you this wisdom through experience, not theory. Chosen one. There is also a quiet healing taking place around disappointment. Some of your disappointment was never about unmet goals. It was about unmet expectations of how God would move. God is gently reframing those moments now, showing you that His faithfulness was present, even when outcomes differed from your hopes. I remember looking back at moments I once labeled as failures and realizing they redirected me toward paths I could not have imagined. That hindsight softened my heart toward God's methods. Expect similar clarity to unfold for you as your trust deepens. Anointed one, rest is also restoring your emotional range. When you live in constant pressure, emotions flatten. Joy dulls. Curiosity fades. God is reawakening those parts of you now. You may find yourself laughing more freely, noticing beauty in small moments, feeling present rather than preoccupied. This is not distraction, it is healing. God restores delight as a sign that your spirit is no longer in survival mode. Delight strengthens resilience and fuels creativity. Both will matter in the season ahead. Chosen one. Your discernment is also becoming quieter and more accurate. Discernment does not always announce itself loudly. Often it is a gentle knowing, a sense of ease or resistance that guides your steps. I learned to respect that knowing once I stopped overriding it with logic, driven by fear. God uses peace as a compass. When peace is present, alignment is near. When peace withdraws, it is an invitation to pause, not to push harder. You are learning to honor this guidance now. Anointed one. God is also healing the way you view responsibility. Responsibility once felt heavy because you carried it alone. Now responsibility becomes shared with God. That shift changes everything. I remember feeling overwhelmed by obligations until I realized I was carrying outcomes God never asked me to manage. When I released outcomes and focused on obedience, the weight lifted. God handled what only He could. Expect responsibility to feel lighter as you continue to trust Him with results. Chosen one. There is a maturation happening in how you handle silence. Silence no longer feels threatening. It feels informative. Silence allows truth to surface without distraction. In silence, you notice what has been speaking the loudest inside you. God uses silence to expose false urgency and restore authentic desire. I learned that some desires only emerge when noise quiets. God is revealing true motivations in you, now separating what you wanted out of fear from what you desire out of alignment. Anointed. One rest is also teaching you patience without frustration. Patience rooted in trust feels different from patience rooted in resignation. It carries hope rather than tension. I learned that hopeful patience expects God to move without demanding a schedule. That expectation sustains faith during uncertainty. God is cultivating that expectancy in you, now one that rests rather than strains. Chosen one. As this process continues, your faith is becoming less performative and more embodied. You no longer need to convince yourself that God is good. You experience it through peace, provision, and presence. This embodied faith is powerful because it does not fluctuate with circumstances. It remains steady. God values this depth because it sustains you through seasons of both abundance and challenge. Anointed one, remain gentle with yourself as this transformation unfolds. Growth does not always announce itself with clarity. Sometimes it reveals itself through calm. Trust that calm. It is not complacency, it is confidence rooted in God's leadership. You are being prepared to move without panic, to decide without fear, and to carry what is given without losing yourself. Stay here, stay rested. God is still at work, and what He is forming in you now will support everything that follows. Or, chosen one. There is a quiet authority settling into your spirit now, and it may surprise you how natural it feels. Authority formed through rest does not need to announce itself. It is recognized by the atmosphere around you. When God takes over, He does not strip you of agency, He restores it in its truest form. You are no longer reacting to life. You are responding from alignment. I remember the first time I noticed this shift in myself. Situations that once demanded immediate reaction no longer pulled at me. I felt a calm certainty, not because I knew what would happen, but because I trusted who was leading me. That trust anchored my decisions in peace rather than urgency, and people around me sensed it before I did. Anointed one. This authority is not loud. It does not push or persuade. It carries weight simply by being present. God is teaching you how to influence without striving, how to lead without pressure, how to stand without defending yourself. In past seasons, you may have felt the need to explain your choices or justify your timing. Now that need is dissolving. When you are aligned, explanation becomes optional. I learned that alignment answers questions before they are asked. God is positioning you to move with this kind of clarity, where your life speaks louder than your words. Chosen one. There is also a deepening sense of discernment around where to invest your energy. Energy is sacred, and God is teaching you to steward it wisely. I remember realizing how much energy I spent worrying about outcomes that never materialized. That realization was humbling. When I released those worries, I found myself with more capacity for creativity, compassion, and presence. God is guiding you to invest energy where it multiplies rather than drains. This discernment protects you from burnout and misalignment. It ensures that what you build is sustainable. Anointed one. As God takes over, you may notice that opportunities begin to align without force. This does not mean effort disappears. It means effort is directed. I have seen doors open effortlessly once my internal posture shifted from control to trust. God honors trust by orchestrating connections and timing beyond what planning can achieve. When you stop chasing alignment, alignment begins to find you. This is not coincidence, it is coordination. Heaven responds to readiness, not restlessness. 1. You are also learning to trust your pace. Pace is personal. God does not compare your journey to anyone else's. In earlier seasons, it was tempting to measure progress by external milestones. Now, progress is measured by peace. I learned that peace is a more accurate indicator of alignment than productivity. When peace governs your pace, you move neither too fast nor too slow. You move in rhythm. God is teaching you to recognize that rhythm and honor it without guilt. Anointed. One this season also restores your capacity to wait without resentment. Waiting without resentment is a sign of maturity. It means you trust that God's timing is not withholding good from you. I remember moments when waiting felt unfair, when others seemed to advance while I remained still. Over time, God showed me that my stillness was not stagnation, it was preparation. That understanding removed bitterness and replaced it with gratitude. Expect your waiting to feel lighter as trust continues to deepen. Chosen. One rest is also refining how you listen. You are becoming more attentive to subtle prompts rather than dramatic signs. God often guides through quiet impressions, gentle nudges, and consistent peace. I learned that waiting for dramatic confirmation often delayed obedience. When I began responding to subtle alignment instead, life flowed more naturally. God is training you to trust these quiet signals. They are reliable because they are rooted in relationship, not spectacle. Anointed one. Your relationship with success is being transformed. Success is no longer something you chase. It is something that unfolds as a byproduct of alignment. I remember the relief of realizing that I did not have to force outcomes to prove faithfulness. Faithfulness itself carried reward. God honors obedience even when results are not immediate. This understanding removes pressure and restores joy. Expect your definition of success to continue shifting toward faithfulness, peace, and impact rather than speed or visibility. Chosen one. As pressure fades, gratitude grows. Gratitude anchors you in the present rather than projecting anxiety into the future. I noticed that when I rested, I became more aware of small provisions I had previously overlooked. Those provisions reminded me that God was already at work, even when I could not see the full picture. Gratitude strengthens trust and softens the heart. God is cultivating this awareness in you, now teaching you to recognize His presence in ordinary moments. Anointed one. There may still be moments when uncertainty surfaces. This does not mean you are regressing. Uncertainty is part of growth. The difference now is how you respond to it. Instead of rushing to resolve it, you rest within it. I learned that resting with uncertainty builds resilience. It teaches you that not knowing does not equal being unsafe. God remains constant, even when details are unclear. That knowledge steadies you. Chosen one. God taking over also restores your capacity for joy without condition. Joy becomes less dependent on outcomes and more rooted in presence. I rediscovered joy in simple routines, quiet mornings, and unhurried conversations once striving lifted. That joy did not distract from purpose, it fueled it. God delights in your joy because it reflects trust. Expect joy to continue surfacing as alignment deepens. Anointed. One this season is shaping you into someone who can carry responsibility without fear and blessing without pressure. That shaping is intentional. God is not preparing you for a moment. He is preparing you for longevity. Longevity requires rest, clarity, and trust. You are learning these now quietly and steadily. Stay attentive to what is forming within you. Do not rush ahead mentally or emotionally. What God is doing now will support everything that follows. Trust the process. Trust the timing. Trust the one who has taken over with care and precision. Chosen one. There is a deeper confidence emerging within you now, one that does not depend on circumstances aligning perfectly. This confidence is rooted in knowing that God is involved, not distant. When God takes over, He does not remove responsibility, but He removes the fear that once surrounded it. I remember the first time I felt this shift clearly. I was facing decisions without clear outcomes, yet instead of panic, there was calm. That calm did not come from certainty, it came from trust. Trust that even if I misstepped, God would correct my path without condemning me. That realization changed how I approached obedience. Obedience became safer, not riskier. Anointed One. You are being taught that God's leadership does not demand perfection. It invites availability. In earlier seasons, you may have delayed action because you feared getting it wrong. Now, fear is loosening its grip. God is showing you that correction is part of relationship, not punishment. I learned that God would rather guide a moving heart than push a frozen one. This understanding freed me from paralysis. It allowed me to act with humility rather than hesitation. Expect your responsiveness to increase as fear continues to dissolve. Chosen One. This season is also healing how you interpret mistakes. Mistakes once felt like evidence of failure or disqualification. Now they are becoming information. Information that God uses to refine direction. I remember looking back at decisions I regretted and realizing that God had woven them into wisdom rather than waste. That perspective removed shame. Shame drains strength. Wisdom restores it. God is reshaping how you see your past so it no longer drains your present. This healing makes room for confidence rooted in grace. Anointed One, as God takes over your relationship with responsibility, continues to mature. Responsibility is no longer something you carry alone. It becomes something you steward with God. This shared stewardship lightens the load. I learned that responsibility feels crushing only when I try to manage outcomes. When I focused on obedience, instead, responsibility became manageable. God handled what only He could, and I handled what was mine. That division restored balance. Expect your sense of balance to continue strengthening as trust deepens. Chosen One. You may notice that your internal dialogue is changing. Where there was once self-criticism, there is now compassion. Compassion does not excuse growth, it supports it. I learned that being harsh with myself never produced transformation. It only produced exhaustion. God's voice, however, corrects without crushing. As you rest in His leadership, you begin to mirror that gentleness toward yourself. This gentleness accelerates growth because it removes resistance. Growth thrives in safety, not pressure. Anointed One. God is also restoring your capacity to dream without anxiety. In earlier seasons, dreams may have felt heavy, accompanied by pressure to perform. Now dreams can be held lightly, trusted to unfold at the right time. I remember rediscovering imagination once striving subsided. Possibilities felt exciting rather than overwhelming. God delights in restoring this creative aspect of faith. Creativity flows freely when fear no longer dominates. Expect new ideas, visions, and inspirations to arise gently without urgency. Chosen One, as rest becomes more natural, patience deepens. Patience rooted in trust feels different from patience rooted in resignation. It carries hope rather than frustration. I learned that hopeful patience allows God to work without interference. Interference often comes disguised as help. When I stopped trying to help God, outcomes aligned more smoothly. God does not need assistance. He needs trust. This truth simplifies faith and reduces pressure. You are learning this through lived experience now. Anointed One, your discernment around timing is also sharpening. You are becoming more comfortable waiting for the right moment rather than forcing progress. I learned that timing determines weight. The same action taken at the wrong time can feel burdensome, while at the right time it feels effortless. God is teaching you to wait for that ease, not because ease avoids effort, but because ease signals alignment. When alignment is present, effort multiplies rather than drains. Chosen One, there is also a strengthening of boundaries taking place. Boundaries protect what God is building. When you were striving, boundaries felt like obstacles. Now they feel like safety. I learned that saying no preserved energy for what truly mattered. God is guiding you to protect your peacetime and focus without guilt. These boundaries are not walls, they are gates. They allow what aligns to enter and keep misalignment out. Expect your boundaries to become clearer and more natural. Anointed One, God is also addressing how you handle others' expectations. Expectations once carried weight because you feared disappointing people. Now that fear is being replaced with clarity. I learned that pleasing everyone diluted my obedience. When I began prioritizing God's direction over others' approval, peace increased. God is strengthening you to remain faithful even when misunderstood. Faithfulness often requires choosing alignment over approval. That choice becomes easier as trust deepens. Chosen One, as this season continues, you may feel less urgency to explain yourself. Silence becomes comfortable, not because you are withdrawn, but because you are secure. I remember the freedom of no longer needing to justify my pace or path. God validated me internally, so external validation lost its grip. This security anchors you during transitions. Expect silence to feel informative rather than awkward. God often works most clearly in quiet spaces. Anointed One, God taking over also restores your sense of hope without pressure. Hope no longer feels like something you must maintain through effort. It becomes a natural byproduct of trust. I learned that hope rooted in God's character is resilient. It does not collapse when circumstances shift. That hope steadies you, now reminding you that God's plans are not fragile, they are secure. You do not need to protect them, you need to trust them. Chosen One, this season is shaping you into someone who can walk forward without fear of the unknown. The unknown no longer threatens you because God is known. This knowing stabilizes every step. Stay present, stay rested, stay surrendered. God is still leading, still forming, still carrying you with intention. What He is building within you now will support every step ahead. Chosen One, as this journey of surrender settles into your spirit, there is a gentle clarity anchoring you that did not exist before. You are no longer waiting for permission to trust God. You are living from that trust. This is the fruit of allowing Him to take over. What once felt uncertain now feels held. What once felt heavy now feels guided. I remember recognizing this shift, not in dramatic moments, but in ordinary ones, when peace remained even without answers, when rest felt natural instead of earned. That is how you know alignment has taken root. Anointed One, this season has taught you something sacred. God's care is not reactive, it is constant. You were never managing destiny alone. You were being prepared to release it. As you release control, you discover freedom without fear and movement without strain. Faith becomes less about effort and more about agreement. Agreement with God's timing, agreement with His pace, agreement with His love. This agreement stabilizes you from the inside out. Chosen one, carry this posture forward, not as a technique, but as a way of being. When pressure returns, return to rest. When questions rise, return to trust. When uncertainty appears, return to presence. You are learning that rest is not retreat. It is residence. It is where God meets you, guides you, and carries what you cannot. Anointed one, you are safe to move slowly. You are free to move wisely. God has not asked you to figure everything out, only to stay aligned. Alignment keeps you covered. Alignment keeps you clear. Alignment keeps you steady. Chosen one, let this be your foundation going forward. Not striving but trusting, not forcing but following, not carrying but resting. God has taken over not to limit you, but to lead you with care. Stay here. Stay present. What unfolds next will unfold from peace. Chosen one. As this message comes to rest in your spirit, know this with certainty: you are not leaving empty. You are leaving aligned. What was sealed is opening. What was hidden is being revealed. Your scroll is not unfolding early or late. It is unfolding now in your exact Kairos moment, the appointed hour written for you on heaven's clock. Anointed one, heaven has spoken and God has stepped in. You are no longer carrying this alone. The weight is lifting because the hand of God is upon it. What you surrendered in faith is being answered in power. Even now, behind the veil, things are moving in your favor. Doors are aligning. Peace is settling. Strength is returning. Receive this blessing. May clarity replace confusion. May rest silence striving. And may divine order overtake every place where effort once ruled. May your nights be covered, your days be guided, and your heart remain anchored in trust. What is coming will not require your exhaustion, only your obedience and your faith. Chosen one, stay aligned, stay grateful, stay attentive to the gentle flow of the anointing. Watch what God brings forth in the days ahead. If your spirit bears witness to this word, you may leave a quiet testimony in the comments or share this message with another chosen one who needs rest. Until then, walk in peace, rise in confidence, and remember this truth: God has taken over, and your future is secure.